Bob Iger made it the civil rights issue of the 21st century. His fight against Ron DeSantis and the cftod, that's the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, he called it an important fight for civil rights. But now there's a win-win agreement between these people and the Walt Disney Company. Let's talk about what's changed on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is theme park guru, Mr. VashSky. Vash, are you ready to venture down to the former Reedy Creek Improvement District and find out what's going on at the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District?
I'm ready to indulge in the swamps today, Jonas. This sounds like a good idea.
There were so many words there, and you just kind of waved them off. What's up with that, Vash? Here, let's talk about this. DeSantis Oversight District. Oh, it's the DOD. But that might get confusing with another organization. Starts work on new development agreement with Walt Disney World. They should put an X right here between these two, like it's Fortnite X Walt Disney World, Central Florida Tourism Oversight District X Walt Disney World. One of those big synergistic efforts here, posted by Mike as part of a win-win settlement with Walt Disney World. This is Blog Mickey. I don't know if I mentioned that. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Central Florida cftod, agreed to invalidate development agreements and a comprehensive plan that it had implemented. Instead, the district will go back to the drawing board, this time bringing Walt Disney World along for the ride. Maybe it's a ride with a 52-foot plunge, to craft a new comprehensive plan and development agreements that should more equitably govern development rules for Walt Disney World property over the next 30 years. Oh, that's interesting framing right there. That should more equitably govern development rules. Vash, why weren't they equitable before?
Because they were completely lopsided and one-sided, in which Disney could essentially do whatever it wanted with its own government, fully separate from the state or even the federal government, and just run ripshot over everybody and everybody that it was around, right? So all the proprietors actually in the district that operate in the district, all the proprietors and government entities outside the district that had to work with what was actually going on within the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Also, too, taxes. There was a lot of taxes that weren't equitable as well, or I should say, what is it, equal. So I've always advocated for a reimagining, let's say, of the Reedy Creek Improvement District, and I think the cftod is going to be able to find a solution that works well with everybody, not just Disney.
Right. Oh my. And you've said three things that I just can't resist here. First of all, the taxing situation. It seems, according to the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District audit of Reedy Creek, that Disney was charging taxes to the other 57 tenants of the district, and they were charging the taxes, and they were deciding what to do with those taxes, and they were also charging for use of the things that were built with those taxes. It was taxation without representation here by the Walt Disney Company, alleged by that audit, of course. And when Disney gets to set all the rules themselves, it's a good thing that there haven't been injuries or anything like that. We, of course, know that there was a claim that the monorails had not been inspected, maybe at all, by an outside party for, I don't know, what are we at, 50 years of Walt Disney World being in existence. Of course, we know that it's a little bit more difficult to do business out there in California, but even with the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, I think it is a better economic environment for the Walt Disney Company. We're going to continue on because I think there'll be more opportunities for us to talk about the ridiculousness of the situation. According to a meeting notice from the district, they will take some of the first steps towards a new development agreement in a May 22nd meeting, where they will introduce a new resolution that will create a new regulation regarding development agreements, whereas the district used to be managed to be a thorn in Disney World's side as a retaliation. Oh, see, this is propaganda right here. This is more complicated than one bill. What actually happened in the state of Florida, despite this parental rights and education bill and how that's referred to here. This development agreement, the former Reedy Creek Act, was done before the Constitution of the state of Florida was set. It was good for Disney. It was on some level good for the people of the state of Florida, except that it exempted the largest, not the largest taxpayer, but one of the largest taxpayers in the state, the largest in Orange County, most likely, from paying any kind of taxes, from paying any kind of impact fees. It created a lot of jobs, but there were a lot of downsides to it. So the people of the state of Florida and the representatives of the state of Florida wanted this to change, but it had to change at a time when there was political will to take away one of Disney's biggest boondoggles here. So It's more that the Walt Disney Company created an environment where they were out of political favor by coming out against the state of Florida and the legislation that was passed by not just the governor, who only signed the bill, but also the legislators of the state of Florida. So, saying it's Ron DeSantis, I mean, that's a simple version of it, but it's more complicated than all of that. Also, any challenges that were made to this bill on the constitutionality of it, those have long since gone away. But here we are looking. While we don't expect the oversight district to function like the former Reedy Creek Improvement District, let's hope. We also don't expect the teeth of oversight to be as sharp as with the removal of former chairman Martin Garcia. First of all, what is this phrase, removal of Martin Garcia? That sounds like he's been fired or something like that. Vash, has it been your experience that this guy gets fired?
Oh, he resigned, from what I understand. He didn't get fired or forcibly removed. I mean, I suppose there may be circumstances in which he took the opportunity to remove himself, but it was his decision, from what I understand. This is not the framing here.
And if you ever watch this guy in meetings, he actually, I like to call this guy the big boss. He did such a fantastic job running these meetings. Even when people were coming up and saying ridiculous things against him, he would stop and say, "Now I noticed that you got here a little bit late and you were past the point at which we were going to be allowing people to speak, but I made a special point to allow you to speak today, and I want to make sure that you say all the things that you want to say." And it was this Disney Defenders guy who came in with like pink slips and glitter and was like, "We're going to fire all of you." It was really catty. It was really silly, but he let everyone have their say here at the meetings. So I wouldn't say that this guy did anything in particular that was that damaging or that tyrannical. I would say that Ron DeSantis and Glenn Gilzine probably hired someone who was not incompetent. They hired someone who was, in fact, highly competent and put them in this role because they were going to have to be dealing with Disney on a regular basis and also dealing with union contracts. The handling of the union contracts when it was discovered that some of the perks that Reedy Creek Improvement District were receiving from the Walt Disney Company were illegal. It doesn't matter what they were intended to be. It mattered that if they continued to pay money to public officials, that was going to represent a federal crime. So those had to be taken away, and they were replaced with payments from the cftod here. I think this is a person that, despite the fact that they want to talk about him like he's a bad guy, I think he handled a really bad situation with tact and with fairness and with a lot of welcoming to people who might have disagreed with him. That's my take on the big boss here. But Vash, what are your comments?
Look, cftod's job is not to necessarily rubber stamp everything that the Walt Disney Company does anymore, right? Obviously, there's going to be some tension right there, and you had to have a strong Type A personality and somebody qualified in which to do that. And so I think that's where Martin Garcia's role right there was, and that's why he was getting paid the big bucks in order to do that. But at the same time, it's not to stonewall everything that the Disney Company wants to do either. It's to find a solution with balance that obviously preserves the rights and prosperity of everybody associated with the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District in a way that just simply didn't exist before. Kind of like what actually happens in Anaheim, but maybe less so.
Yep. This is great right here. Back in April, Disney CEO Bob Iger commented on the settlement, saying that the agreement will enable Disney to pursue the kinds of investment in our Florida parks that they have previously alluded to. Most notably, fans were very excited about the announcement that Disney would be investing $17 billion into the Walt Disney World theme parks over the next 10 years. But that investment was put at risk by DeSantis' stance against Disney and an adversarial oversight district. This is halfway true. First of all, that $17 billion over 10 years, that's $1.7 billion. So when they talk about that $60 billion to turbocharge parks, that was actually a downgrade from the $17 billion that they talked about. Let's give a few indications here. First of all, the Lake Nona thing that was going to happen, that didn't happen, but they attributed that to Ron DeSantis. Lake Nona was not going to happen regardless because it was wildly unpopular within the company to move all of your Imagineers from the state of California to the state of Florida.
Correct.
Another thing that happened is that the Star Cruiser shut down. They tried to put both of these things on Ron DeSantis instead of their own financial mismanagement and cultural mismanagement within the company. So when they say that this $17 billion was going to be invested in Florida, that's on their own head, because Walt Disney World Resort is the most profitable segment of the Walt Disney Company. Even under cftod, even under Reedy Creek, it was profitable. So this whole idea that they weren't going to do that because, well, we're not sure about this Ron DeSantis guy, is patently ridiculous. It is Walt Disney World Resort, then Disneyland Resort, and then everything else, they make a fraction. I mean, a fraction. We're talking about 50%, 25%, 10% on these parks. They don't even make money on Disneyland Paris. That is a complicated oversimplification, but they don't really make any money on Disneyland Paris.
Not at this point, no, and not anything near what Disneyland and Walt Disney World makes. I believe even Hong Kong has only been profitable what 2 out of the total years it's been an entity under the Walt Disney Company. So Walt Disney World is where the revenue is at, and that's why it was so crucial to get a deal done, which obviously preserved the revenue coming into Walt Disney World, but spread around in a way that it simply just wasn't. I mean, that's the thing with cftod. That obviously this had to be realigned and reassessed because, well, if the goal of the Reedy Creek Improvement District was to improve the district had already been improved. So it was time to reevaluate this deal. That's for sure. True. I want to also bring up the fact that I believe it was Legal Mindset when we were talking to him saying, hey, look, listen, they have to get this deal done or else there's not going to be any investment going forward, at least large-scale investment going forward into Walt Disney World for the foreseeable future. And this is why around the time that this settlement deal was done, now we're seeing, trailers and permits being set up for future investment into the Walt Disney World Resort, because previously, from what we understand and from what the evidence shows, it couldn't actually take place.
Right. Well, it's a fair point, because it could be that the development couldn't happen, or it could be that Disney was so sure that they were going to that they were going to win this thing that they wanted to wait until the very last minute to actually start any development there at Walt Disney World Resort, because they wanted to do it their way as opposed to their way plus having to submit it to a permitting committee here to determine whether or not it was up to code. With that being said, we want to throw this to our commenters. Have you been following this situation since it started happening? If you were with WDW Pro and Valiant Renegade and Legal Mindset, etc., and maybe that Park Place as well, then maybe you knew this was coming. But if not, what do you think about this situation here? Is this cftod agreement going to be better for Walt Disney Company in the long run? Like this video, of course, if you like this video. And if you wouldn't mind, consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.